Hello, this is Eric Carter Lundeen, the host and producer of True Consequences, a true crime and mystery podcast with stories based in New Mexico and the American Desert Southwest. We'll uncover cases such as the Toy Box Killer, one of the worst serial rapists and suspected serial killers in New Mexico's history. We will also discuss mysteries such as alien sightings, as well as hauntings and other weird things that happen in this area of the country. I hope you'll give me a chance and listen to True Consequences. I think you might enjoy it. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
The Oracle Network. The Oracle Network. Look deeper.
This is Dos Pequeños,
a funnier look at the paranormal in New Mexico.
with your co-ghosts, Eric Carter Lundeen.
And Alex.
What's up, Alex?
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. What is up, spooky friends? We are super excited to bring you episode 4 today. But before we do that,
It's already episode 4.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have to issue a formal apology to the students of the New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell and to the alumni. I alluded to the fact that school was only for troubled kids. And the only reason I said that is because I was used to being threatened with going there because of my behavior. But it is a really prestigious school and it's really famous, and a lot of famous politicians and military officers and tons of other people have gone through that school. So I'm sorry to everybody. I'm not perfect. I'm really far from perfect, actually. So yeah, thanks for calling me out on that. Call us out on our bullshit because we need that. At least I do. I don't know about Alex. He thinks he's pretty great.
I also remember this is comedy stuff, man. We're not trying to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry about that. I obviously didn't know about that school being as awesome as it is.
Nope.
Okay, so this episode today is going to be really fucking spooky. I'm a little nervous about talking about it just because of all the myths around this whole thing. We are, of course, talking about the elusive skinwalker myth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
It's a big deal, especially for traditional Dene and Ute and other tribes.
Yeah, we need to have a little disclaimer.
Yeah. So the disclaimer is this episode deals with discussion of the skinwalker. If you are a traditional practicing Dene or Ute or any other native tribal member, you may want to skip this one.
It's a good call.
Yeah. All right. So what do you got for me? I know you have a story you're going to tell me.
Well, I'm going to do something a little different today. I want to start off with this story. And it's kind of a spooky story, so let's get into it.
I am here for the spooky stories.
So this was posted by a Reddit user, Jimmy Jam 1. And this is the story. Ready?
Yep.
All right. This all happened about 5 years ago. One night, a few of my friends decided after a night of hanging out that we'd go on an adventure at about 3 a.m. We took a ride about 50 miles to this old Spanish ruin in New Mexico, and that was once the seat of the Inquisition. And I can't for the life of me remember what this place is called, so we jumped the front gate to the place and start exploring. One of my friends brought a flute with him, and he started playing it. About 30 seconds into his mediocre playing, something started screaming really, really loud on the tops of the long-destroyed walls of the place. It was going from wall to wall really quick, screaming the most blood-curdling scream you've ever imagined. We noped the fuck out of there. One of my friends pissed his pants and drove for a few hours to Bandelier National Monument, where we planned to camp out for the rest of the weekend. We got to Bandelier at probably 6 or 7 a.m. and set up our camp. And after a few hours just talking about what the hell had happened at the ruins, I went to take a piss behind probably only 300 feet from our camp or so. This is where everything starts getting a little fuzzy. I remember seeing 2 dust devils coming my way, and when I turned around again, 2 of my friends were there, and they were motioning me to follow them. I couldn't help but to follow him. And I was being pulled behind them in shackles, and I followed them for what seems like 10 or 15 minutes. And then I snapped out of it. These weren't my friends. They had bright red hair with friends' faces and cat eyes. And both of the friends were brunette. And I stopped walking, and they looked at me with probably the most terrifying gaze I'd ever seen. Monsters in movies are nothing compared to this. And I turned around and ran as fast as I could back the way I came from. After like 5 minutes of a full sprint, I got back to the rock that I pissed at and found our camp. And everyone was there, still sitting around, talking, and didn't even notice that I was gone. And I told them what had happened with the look-alike skinwalkers, and we packed up everything and we left probably within like 10 minutes and got the hell back to Albuquerque. What do you think about that?
No. I don't know. I have a lot of questions about this.
Okay,
like, I want to know if they were on anything. Mm-hmm. Number one, because who decides to go for a road trip at 3 a.m?
It sounds like they might have been partying.
Yeah, maybe they were partying. Also, the tales of skinwalkers that I've heard and read, I mean, I know that they're shapeshifters, but they usually shift into animals. I haven't heard a lot about them shifting into people. So that's interesting.
Yeah. We'll get into that.
Yeah. I'm going to say no to drugs is my answer. But it does sound like a weird night, and it sounds like he definitely saw something that was spooky and creepy.
Right. Well, this is a story about one of the spookiest things I've heard about since living here in the Southwest. I think the first time I heard about it was when I was in middle school around there, and I heard stories, and I'd heard it always scared the shit out of me. Yeah,
it's definitely one of the more creepy and malicious myths or legends in this area of the country. It's so frightening for some, and many believe that just mentioning the word skinwalker is enough to make you a target for them.
Fantastic.
And as you can imagine, being a target of a skinwalker is not something you want to fuck around with.
Maybe we should just call them SW.
Okay. SWV, Sisters with Voices. Do you remember them?
Oh, hell yeah.
I almost started singing, but Alex gets mad at me when I do that, so I'm not going to. These beings are pure evil and have no positive intentions. It's said that you will have to acquire the blessing of a chief to remove the target if you find yourself facing a skinwalker. Have you ever seen one?
I mean, maybe, but how really would I know?
Well, I think that they have some telltale signs, which we'll get into. I don't think I've ever seen one before. And I don't think I've ever heard them scream, but there's a lot of people that say that they have a really inhuman scream that is blood-curdling.
An inhuman? So like an animal?
It's...
like an animal scream?
Yeah, well, it's like not an animal and not a human.
The skinwalkers are a legend of the Native Americans in the Southwest, mainly the Navajo. The Navajo and other Native American tribes believed that medicine men would use some animals and link them with witchcraft. These animals were usually considered to be tricksters, such as the coyote or the hare. And some of these creatures were also seen as bad omen or a symbol of death. These animals apparently also had the power to be able to possess somebody all by just looking at them in their eyes.
Weird.
Yeah. Here in the Southwest, some of the different tribes that have had their own versions of the skinwalker myth are the Navajo, the Hopi, and Utes. They are all different, but they all have similar stories in which a hostile witch or spirit is capable of changing itself into like a wolf, a coyote, a bear, snake, bird, or really anything it wants to. When it changes into this animal or whatever it has, then it has all the ability of that animal. That sounds pretty fucking awesome to me, man, to be honest.
Yeah.
What would you change into?
A motherfucking bear. How about you?
An octopus.
What?
Octopus are rad. They're like aliens, man.
Okay, but like, aren't skinwalkers out to get people? So how are you going to get people when you're in the ocean?
I'm not going to be out to get people.
Oh,
but if
you're just going to be hanging out as an octopus?
I'd be under the water, man. Be like...
just swimming around?
Swimming around, minding my biz in my garden.
I'll be eating some salmon. Roaring at people.
Just roaring.
All right, Alex, let's talk about the history of the skinwalker. So I watched an interview with the Dene or Navajo chief, and he talked about the fact that skinwalkers are basically now considered to be malicious. And they're most often born out of the idea of envy or anger towards someone in a community. And he talked about, there might be a person who bought a brand new truck and somebody's jealous of that truck. They want it. And so they decide that they're going to take on and become a skinwalker to curse you to get your truck, which is
That's kind of an asshole.
Little petty.
Yeah.
He described the history of the skinwalker as occurring when the conquistadors were coming through New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. He said that medicine men would take on the form of animals in order to spy on the Spaniards to see what they were up to. And as you know, the Spaniards were not nice or friendly to the natives.
No.
They went as far as murdering, enslaving, and raping them. Not to mention attempts to convert them to Catholicism and the attempted erasure of their cultures and religions. Sorry. I'm on my soapbox again.
Get on up there.
I do that shit all the time. So the original intent of the Skinwalker was to help tribes deal with these invaders from Europe. But it took a dark turn as time went on. And as you can imagine, the power to turn into a shape-shifting being comes with a cost. And it's a pretty fucking heavy price to pay. It's believed in the Dene culture that in order to become a Skinwalker, you have to sacrifice somebody that you care about.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm talking about murder. So in order to do this, you're going to have to kill somebody you love.
Yeah, not worth it.
No, dude. Fuck that.
I keep coming back to someone's, the jealousy over someone's truck. I'm like, so I get to kill someone I love because I'm jealous of this guy's truck.
Yeah, really stupid.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons that skinwalkers are seen as malevolent. The amount of jealousy or anger that it would take to want to be a skinwalker bad enough to kill a loved one has to be overwhelming, right?
Well, yeah.
So, skinwalkers are part of a secret society in the Dene community, according to this chief. Usually, they are people who have some sort of resentment towards another member of the community, and they will ask to join the skinwalkers so they can curse their enemy. They typically will attend a secret meeting in the middle of nowhere, and there will be animal skins kind of laid out in front of everybody. And as they start their secretive ceremony, the animal skin will begin to move towards the individual, and they will become a version of that animal.
Shit.
They can then curse and cause problems for their enemies because skinwalkers have extra human abilities.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there. I'm kind of absorbing that story right now.
Okay, what do you think?
That's a crazy ceremony.
Yeah.
It sounds. It almost sounds like they wouldn't want to be told. That ceremony.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's heavy.
It's really creepy, dude.
So the stories of skinwalkers have been told for many years to the children of the Navajo, and these stories usually involve the typical life and death struggles that usually have either the person killing the skinwalker or vice versa, or they would end in a stalemate where no one would actually die at all. So people that have not been raised in the Native American culture may have a different view of what a skinwalker is or could be. These encounters and stories are kind of the same sometimes, or at least they seem to have the same kind of theme.
Yep.
Usually the story is about driving and seeing something on the side of the road, just staring at the driver. But the driver or witness is usually able to escape the impending doom that awaits them. According to Dan Benishek, anthropologist at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, skinwalkers are purely evil in intent. And I'm no expert on it, but the general view is that skinwalkers do all sorts of just terrible things. They make people sick and they commit murders. And so for the Native Americans here in the Southwest, these stories of the skinwalkers are not just mere stories or mythical tales. The belief in them is very strong, especially in the Navajo Nation.
All right, I think it's time for another skinwalker story from Reddit, Alex.
Cool. Let's hear it.
So from Reddit user Listen Ninja, and she has two stories from her family. She is Navajo, and I thought they were really creepy, so I'm going to read them to you. All right, quote, "This is a story my family told me when I was growing up. We live in a rural community on the Navajo reservation. My aunt and her two brothers were home alone while my grandparents had left for the evening to attend a chapter house meeting." What is that? What's
a chapter house meeting?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Okay. They were in the house, and like many people from the reservation, they didn't have electricity. It had been dark outside for about an hour, and my aunt and uncles were getting ready for bed. Outside, they started to hear noises as if someone was moving things around. My oldest uncle went to look out the front window and saw a figure out by the truck. This was immensely out of the ordinary because the closest neighbor was miles away. Whatever it was opened the truck door and began to dig through personal items that my family had left in the vehicle. My aunt and uncles were frightened by the sight and knew that they should take action. They took out the rifle and steadied themselves to hold it up. They flung open the door, aimed the gun at the dark figure. The figure turned and started to walk towards them, totally unfazed by the weapon. My uncle pulled the trigger, but nothing happened.
Jeez, like the gun didn't go off?
It sounds like it. The figure drew closer, and my aunt began to smell something like a rotting corpse. It was so strong it made her gag. My uncle continued to pull the trigger with no luck, and the figure came closer and closer. Off in the distance,